By the end of this episode, listeners will have a clear framework for determining their personal relationship with AI and the confidence to help others navigate similar decisions, turning understanding into sustainable practice. Now, with that, I want to say welcome back to episode 4. If you've been with us through this series, you've moved from paralyzed to curious, from curious to capable, and from capable to confident. Last episode, we talked about how you're not just managing AI, you're designing how it shows up in the world, and you're directing it with that shield and sword that's kind of like a superhero. You're not just adapting to whatever comes your way, you're actually directing and making sure that whatever is presenting is intentional and purposeful. And it's allowing you to be able to navigate this world and all of these transformations and changes that are taking place in a way that allows you to really be able to put your stamp on it. So I'd like to start with when you imagine your work in 5 years from now, what do you hope is still recognizable about you or recognizably you?
Yeah, yeah. So the publishing world might be completely different in 5 years, and that would be fine. I have no problem with a complete reworking of the publishing world. We don't know where it's going, and I'm excited to see where it might go. What will be exactly the same in 5 years will be my values. I will have the same values. I'll have the same level of integrity. I will work by the same ethics. I will prioritize creativity and critical thinking. I think that humans want to be creative and that we need critical thinking skills to maneuver through whatever the world throws at us. I remember going to when I was in university, one of our professors said, because I didn't take a degree, like I didn't study accounting, right? I didn't study, I'm now a lawyer. And so I remember one of the professors, he said, my job here is to give you what you need to maneuver through the rest of your life. It's not to teach you A, B, or C. It's to give you the critical thinking skills. It's to inspire your creativity. It's like all of these things to give you your help you work through your values so that you can take all of this into anything you move through in life. Because life is going to change, your job's going to change, everything's going to change. And so that's how I think of when I move through AI. In 5 years, maybe we're not going to have writers. Maybe we're going to have story designers and AI is going to do a
Yes.
majority of the writing. And then maybe I'm going to develop a story edit AI. And then that story designer is going to use AI to write the story, give it to me, and it's going to go through a developmental edit. Maybe that's what it's going to look like. I don't know. I'm not here to predict the future, but I know that whoever that person is who's decided on this story they want to tell the world, that their values are honored, that their
Mhm.
creativity is honored, and that we continue to see human beings as intelligent, creative. We have the critical thinking skills to make good decisions for us now and for the next 7 generations.
I am in total agreement with that. I think recognizably you is the key part to that because I see a lot of that getting lost right now. There are times where I joke with my friends and I will send them a clip on YouTube or from TikTok. And what we marvel at is just how irresponsible people are about the things that they'll take someone's face and put it on or turn something into something else. And where I see things going is you can only go unchecked, but for so long. And I've seen things where they've used people's likeness and put some very odd things in there, and for a lack of a better way to put it, in their mouths. Pause. So it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, we have to figure out how to be able to put a check and balance in. And I think it's just a matter of when they do it to the right person and that person files the lawsuit that the floodgates are going to open. And then that's when they're going to actually start to monitor these things and put some parameters in to kind of set things up because between the actress that is AI and the people that are scanning people's voices and doing so many different things with music and then creating music based on the people's speech patterns and all of these different things that they learn. It's an interesting time. And I think this is where individualism actually stands out even more.
Mm,
Because as much as we hear people talk about authenticity, and is commonly thrown around. It's not something that's actually being exercised in that way. And I think what we're going to move towards is the people that do not have that herd mentality are going to be the people that end up standing out. And it's just history repeating itself all over again.
Yeah.
The people that stood out initially were always going to stand out.
Yeah.
We talked about it in a previous episode. I have the AI agents interview me because there are things that I've experienced and but I don't think about it because it's not part of my everyday life. But when it asks me the questions, then I can go into that reserve and say, oh, yeah, well, this is how I would explain this. Or, well, can you give me another analogy? This is how I would explain it another way. So, I would say like one of the things that I was actually working on something earlier today, and it was asking for an analogy, and I said, well, sometimes I'll talk to people that want to be entrepreneurs or say that they can't do something. And I'm more of a let me tell you all the reasons why you can do it. And then let's remove all the things that you need to worry about on the back end. But I don't want to make someone feel defeated before they even get started. So sometimes I'll talk to people about entrepreneurship and they'll say, oh, well, I don't think I could be a business owner. Oh, I don't think I could run a business. And I said, okay, well, let me put it to you this way. You work a 9 to 5. And in most cases these days, you may work a 9 to 7 or whatever it is, but your hours may be whatever they are. But for the bulk of people, there are people that only really get time on the weekends. If you get the weekend, you're a weekend warrior. And
Mm.
I say weekend warrior to the extent that you have 2 days to figure out how you're gonna get all your shopping done, how you're gonna make time for the family, how you're gonna get all your chores done, how you're gonna get all of these things done. There are life skills that we use in our personal lives that if you just figured out how to translate that over into the entrepreneurial skills that you have, you already have all the skills that you need. It's just the framing of it. So it's understanding those things. And this is where I think AI can actually help people because the moment I explained that to AI and I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, when you ask me for an analogy, I'll go with the weekend warrior. It wouldn't shut up about the weekend warrior for like 2 days. And I was just like, I really need to move on from that. But it was like, no, that was a good analogy. It's have it ask you questions because then it will land on something and say, okay, based on your experience and what it is that you're able to explain, this is how you can explain it to the audience and make sure it makes sense to them. And this is how you can make sure that you're conveying what it is that you need to be able to convey. Because
Yeah.
more than not, if you're on the business side of something, it's not about your experiences as much as it is about making sure that you connect with their experiences. So I went with the weekend warrior analogy because there aren't a lot of people that work Mondays through Fridays, get 2 days off. And when I give that analogy, they don't understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. And, just going back to what we were talking just a little bit ago, you asked me about, I forget the exact question, but what came to my mind was that we're talking about questions. And
Yes.
AI can't ask those nuanced questions. And the other thing it can't do that I do and I do well is that whole big, so much information. So AI is really good at it can hold more information than I can hold, right? You can give AI even more information than you can give me. And I have clients who are like, I'm impressed your amount. Like, yeah, that's chapter 3. And like, how do
Hmm.
you know this? I'm
Hmm.
like, so it's like cramming. It's like I'm a bit of a crammer in that way. I'll cram a lot of information in while I'm working on this job and I'll know so much, but then I'm not trying to remember it forever. And it's like I'm
Yes.
cramming for an exam. But what I will hold on to it and I'll hold on to it forever. So AI has me on that. What AI can't do that I do really well, and maybe one day AI will be able to do this, but it can't do it yet. It can't understand the human psychology of where someone is when they pick up a book and they're hoping for an answer to a problem or a solution. They don't understand the fears, the desires, the psychology, what they've tried in the past, what they like. They can't actually fully grab the nuance of that and then fully grab the nuance of where that person wants to be at the end of it and then find a flow, find a path of for information to flow so that you get the reader from one to the other. That's something that as of yet, AI cannot do, and that's something that I do with all my clients. Sometimes I do it before they've started writing, where I help them
Hmm.
create that so they use that to write. Other times I have somebody come with, you know, 100,000 words or whatever it is, and they're like, I feel like it's not flowing. And I pull it all apart. We dig into the reader, we dig into the reader at the beginning and the end, and then I create that flow. I can't get AI to do that yet. I mean, I'm working on it doing a developmental edit, but it doesn't get all those nuances yet. I'm not saying it won't in the future, but as of yet, it's not grabbing all those nuances. And I know there are people out there like, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing with AI." It's like, "No, yeah, I do."
Mhm.
It doesn't ability that goes a little beyond having a lot of knowledge and having some kind of artificial intelligence. It doesn't have the emotional capacity, the
Yes.
empathy, it doesn't have all those pieces that are actually really important in order to take a reader from point A to point B in a book that's 100,000 words or
Yeah.
75,000 words, right? So I
Yeah.
just wanted to add that in because it kind of related to something we were talking about just a little while ago. We can dig
No,
into
you're
more of that
you're
if you want.
you're on point, and you're actually leading into one of the very next things I wanted to be able to discuss with you. But yeah, no, I'm in 100% agreement. I think it's something where we're talking about nuance and understanding agendas and emotional connections and experiences. Those are things that you actually have to provide AI in order for it to be able to get the context. And then it can be able to say, okay, well, based on this, then it goes back and it looks at the patterns of all the other times where it was cataloging those things. As humans, we have to be able to read those things in real time. There's the joke of if a baby falls, don't make a face like you're worried and the baby won't cry.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
these little things where you have to understand the human side of things. You know, sometimes someone will trip in the street and they'll look around to see if anybody noticed. Like there are things that just as humans we have to understand about each other, and when we do, it becomes such a natural thing that we don't think about it. It's like breathing. As opposed to with AI, you actually have to still explain those things to people,
yeah,
or rather explain it to AI in order for it to be able to get the context. And then it'll look for the pattern. And then it'll say, okay, based on the patterns that I found, here's
yeah.
this part, and then you still have to fine tune everything
You're
from
right.
there. So
Yeah, and that's a really good point because that's how AI makes decisions. We talked about this in episode 3 a little bit. If you ask AI what you should do for your business in the future, it will go out you can give it all the information about your business. You can, get it to go out and find competitors. It can go look at all the past patterns, and based on that, it will give you a prediction for the future. That's how the artificial intelligence works. It's looking for patterns, it's making predictions based on patterns, but what it doesn't have is that extra information that we I'm gonna say we feel, right?
mhm.
We have sometimes I know something, but I don't know how I know it, right? Like
Yes,
it's just
yes,
it's a wisdom that's
yes.
been building up in my life, and it's like, "No, I'm sure that's not right. I'm not quite sure why," but AI can't do that. AI can't explore in that way, and and in your work, that's really important. So, just
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's we're talking about key differentiators. We not only have to do it with competitors, now you actually if you're viewing AI as a competitor, then you actually want to be able to identify those things as what it
Yes.
cannot do. There are songs that can come on and it brings back memories and brings you back to moments. There are scents that you can smell and it will bring you back to a moment and it'll bring back all of these evolutions of different parts of your life and things like that. So those are things that can't be delivered. Those are things that are very hard to express. And
Exactly.
as long as you understand that those are things that you still have in your arsenal to be able to leverage, it's going to be very hard for it to be able to compete on that level. It can look at patterns, but you would have to explain that pattern to someone to go, well, why did you respond that way when you heard that song? Why did you respond that way when you when your brother looked at the mocha cake? You would have to say, "Okay, because my mother made it, and this is how many times, and this is what the experience was," and all the rest of that. That's providing it with the context that allows it to be able to say, "Okay, so this is why I continue to say, as smart as AI is, it has its aha moments. It has to be able to be given the context for it to be able to get on the same page with you, and then from there, then it can start to say, "Okay, well, now I'm seeing the pattern within our conversation, so now I can speak a little more intelligently about what it is that we're talking about." But without it, it's just not going to pick up on that nuance, or at least not yet. Maybe in the future it'll be able to do something like that, but right now it's just not there. So with that, I want to go into the Da Vinci principle and
Okay.
going more so into there are some things that can be automated, and then there are some things that you probably don't want to do just because of your values and just things in general. that this kind of goes back to integrity and principles and things like that. I know that there are things that I want to be able to manage because, again, I know that I'm responsible for the consequences of what it is that I put out there. Uh, when we're looking at AI and all the things that we can hand off, one of the things that I like to be able to leverage, and this may not be something that everyone knows, uh, Leonardo da Vinci could have hired assistants for much of his work, but he chose not to. There are a lot of different things that we can outsource to people, but there are some things that, because it's us talking about recognizably you and what makes us authentically us,
Yeah.
those are the things that you keep in house because you can't really explain it to someone else. And I would love to be able to talk about that from the author side. And I can always talk about it from the brand strategy and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you're helping people tell their stories and their lives and their experiences and things like that, and there is only but so much of that they can outsource to someone else. I'm fascinated by the people that help people write books, because I
Ghostwriters?
imagine they have to listen to this. Yes, the ghostwriters. You would have to listen to their stories and figure out how to articulate what it is that they're saying in a way that still makes it them. And that's always been fascinating to me because you have to be a really good listener in order to be able to take what someone's saying and their experiences and still make someone else read it and go, you know what, that's you got them. That's them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How much of that do you do in what it is that you're doing, and what is that experience like?
Yeah, so I am not a ghostwriter. I do not do any ghostwriting, but I do have a ghostwriter on the team. So
Okay.
we, as a company, do ghostwriting,
Mhm.
and the ghostwriter I have is very experienced. Has done both fiction and nonfiction. Really knows what she's doing. And when we talk about it, it's listening really carefully, not just to the story, but to the nuance of the voice of the person telling the story. So we do a lot of you know give me all of your written, like, do you have journals? Do you have diaries? Like, give me all of your written stuff.
Mm,
Anything, blogs, give me all of your information. We often do interviews, tape interviews. So, when she's writing, she's not just listening for the information, she's listening to the nuances, she's listening to the tone, she's listening to the word choice, she might be listening to the accent. There's so much that she's listening to, and then taking all of that and say, okay, I need to really understand this person, why they speak this way, why they think this way, and turn that into, this is how they would write this story. And so
okay.
there's a lot that goes into ghostwriting. I don't do it. I do help people write, but I'm more of a writing coach. It's always, I don't write for them. Or if I do, sometimes when I'm coaching, they're struggling and I'm like, okay, you want to say something like this, but
Mhm.
don't leave that there. This is me giving you a jumping off point. Like, I'll give prompts and things, but not for them to keep what I've written, but to give them a place to jump off from. I do that quite a bit when I'm working with people. People are stuck. And so we'll write a little piece together, or
Okay.
I'll say, you want something like this, and they'll go it. But I don't, like, my name is not on the book, right? They I'm invisible, right? And same with a ghostwriter. It's invisible, right? So yes, so we do ghostwrite, and it's very much about all the nuances. And we have seen people use AI to write their books and then send them to us to
Mhm.
edit. It's very obvious that AI has written the book. It's just not as that the human who is supposed to have written the book just isn't there in the same way that they would be if they'd written the book, right? So we don't want AI to take our intelligence or our thinking skills or our creativity away from us. Now, at least most humans don't, right? If you're after money, great. AI can write you 100 books. You can put them up somewhere that'll accept them, and try to make a career as a story designer. That's great. But most humans want to retain their opinions, their thinking, their
Mhm.
creativity. So ghostwriters try to tap into that and replicate it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. I would call AI a ghostwriter in a lot of ways.
Yes, but at this moment, not a very good one,
Yes, yes, that is exactly the point.
right?
That
Yeah,
is exactly the point. It's listening for things, but it's basing it on patterns, but it's basing it on patterns not necessarily from the person that's talking, but based on the history of information that it's gotten from everyone else.
Yes. And it's not looking at emotional patterns
No,
necessarily, right? The
no.
words on the page don't always construe the emotion, but if you're listening to a tape of someone, so we'll do an interview, we will transcribe that, but the ghostwriter will also listen to the tape. Not to, not to transcribe it, but to get the nuances, and AI can't do that. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. No,
not yet.
I don't wanna misspeak. When I say ghostwriter, I mean a poor man's version, not a actual version that's something that someone should be listening to. Because it's like you said, I know from market research, from interviews, and just as a strategist when I'm trying to help people get their voice, I'm not just listening for the words, I'm listening for when you perk up, when you brighten up, when you add more context, when I see you get excited about certain things, and I can say, "Okay, that's the but. That's the thing that I wanna make sure that we're conveying over to everyone else." And
Yes.
then from a marketing standpoint, it's the same thing. It's just I'm doing that with the audience to be able to identify what are the things they actually prioritize, what are the things that they say mean something to them, and not the lying spots where they'll make something, oh, well, yeah, this is really important to me. But when we talk about guilty pleasures, then you talk about on the back end when they lower their guards, they're like, yeah, I mean, I said that, but like, this is the thing that actually matters to me more. It's identifying those things and being able to understand that and then convey that at the right time. That's that emotional connection. And it goes back to over 90% of purchases are made based on emotional purchases. So it's when you can make that connection, then people are more likely to be able to take that step and take that leap or that risk and say, you know what, I believe in you, despite the fact that they may not have the tangible things that say, here's all the reasons that you should. They
Mhm.
just hope on the back end that you're gonna be able to deliver on the things that you're saying. So I think it's really important to be able to identify that's part of understanding Da Vinci and understanding that there's some things that you want to be able to outsource, and then there's certain things that you want to be able to keep in-house because you can explain those things. And I cover it from like a content standpoint and creativity wise. We've talked about it. I've had people ask me about my business model and different things that I put out, like frameworks. Well, why would you put that framework out and you didn't trademark it or anything like that? And I'm like, because I'm not operating from a scarcity mindset. Like, I don't think I'm going to run out of ideas. I don't worry about certain things because at the end of the day, if someone asks a follow up question, if they want to be able to get more context, they're not going to be able to get it from that person. I think one of the things when we're talking about this is the reason that you keep certain things in house is because a struggle creates ideas, it creates insights, it gives you that hands on knowledge. I've joked with people where I said, you know what, that book learned knowledge is fascinating, but it's not really something implementable in the real world the same way hands on experience might be.
Yeah.
It can give you the introduction to something, it can give you the concept, but I equate a lot of what AI pushes out to something like that. Whereas I know from doing certain things, like there are books that I read now or just content that's out. And these are some really smart people, made a lot of money doing what it is that they did. And they're talking about concepts. And I'm like, oh, I never knew that's what that was called. I was too busy doing it to know that you labeled it and called it something. So I think people undervalue their experiences and they look for other people to be able to put a level of importance on something. When if you leverage AI the right way, you can have it ask you the questions and it can actually highlight, no, no, no. Like you're looking for all of this information. Similar to the Weekend Warrior, you already have all of the information. You already have all the insights and everything that you need. It's just the framing of it. Now we just have to focus on you explaining it in a way that says, well, here's my take on it, and here's why it's important to me. And then that's where you find your tribe. That's when you find people that say, you know what, the way you explained it is actually something that means something to me. And I think that's where the creativity and everything kicks in. So the
Yeah.
craft is important. Mastery comes from
Yeah.
repetition, it comes from our experiences and things like that. So I don't know that it necessarily gets that unless we tell it that this is why this is important and this is why this is relevant and some of the rest of those things. But even after that, it's still not going to have the same level of context that we would. And that's where we still get to make it us. So when you get something, even to print something out and it sounds great and it's everything else, still look at it, still read it and make sure that there's still enough of you in it because anyone that truly knows you is going to be able to look at that and go, you know what, I can see, that's maybe 70%, 60%.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not you, it's just a version of you that let's just call a representative that puts something out where you're just kind of putting out filler content. And that's not going to help you accomplish some of the things that you want to be able to accomplish. So
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah.
be mindful of that part.
Yeah, can we go back to Da Vinci for a minute? Because I wanna
Yes,
talk about the
please.
publishing world. So, if Da Vinci found 5 artists, and Da Vinci taught those artists how to replicate his work
Hmm.
and how to paint like him, then he could have a studio of him and 5 other artists pumping out paintings and then taking to the market and selling them and making more money.
Yes.
And Da Vinci would have been the master of the formula of the paintings, right? And so he could have done that. He didn't, could have done that. In the publishing world, there are authors who are very famous. And if you look at how many books they put out per year, you think, wow, how'd they do that? So the how they do that, they are if not really an author, they're a franchise. So the author has found the formula. And I'm not going to
Okay.
mention names, but you go to Google it. It's there. It's not a secret. So the author has found this formula,
Hmm.
how they formulate their stories, how they build their characters, the type of characters they have, the type of stories they have. They have this formula. And then once they have this formula down and they're selling lots of books and they're doing well, ghostwriters can come along and read all their books. And then the ghostwriter and the author can sit there and go, I think I was thinking of writing a book like this, da, da, da. And the ghostwriter can basically go off and write a book. And then the ghostwriter gets paid really well because this person's name is what is selling books,
Gotcha.
not the stories themselves per se. Mind you, people love the stories, but it's the name. So think of it as a franchise, an author franchise. And there are authors out there who have kind of like a franchise. And maybe one day AI will be able to replicate that. Great. If that's what people want, maybe that's partly this way this author becomes a story designer, as we've talked about. And then they create books and then they might give it to humans. The job might not be to write the book, but it may be to edit it to ensure it stays within that franchise, right?
Within the
So that
confines
exists.
of,
That
yeah.
already exists, and maybe AI will kind of help that happen. But then there are authors who take great pride
Mm.
in their creativity and their world building. The Lord of the Rings. Let's take the Lord of the
Yes.
Rings. Okay, so created a world, created a language, created peoples.
Hmm.
That took years and years and years, and that was craft. That was creativity. That was genius at work, right? And so we can compare these two. There's no way that someone who wants to write something like The Lord of the Rings is going to go to AI and go, "Oh, just do it all for me." They may go to AI and say, "I'm building this world and this is where I'm at. And I'm struggling with this little piece and let's brainstorm some ideas." That would work for them. But they're not just going to go to AI and say, I'm an author franchise and I just want to make money, which is very different than I'm an author who loves the craft, and that's what fills me up, is building worlds and building stories that people love. And I only publish a book every 2 to 3 years because that's how long it takes me. Those are very different business models in the publishing world. And one leans more into AI or the availability of AI than the other. And I don't think those are necessarily going to change anytime soon.
No, what a great one. Thank you for sharing that because now I'm thinking of different types of situations where I may know authors that have, if I equate it to marketing and advertising, they systematize something and then they just basically rinse and repeat. And it's just one of those things of it's a watered down version of the same thing. And it's after a certain point, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, there's nothing new to it. It's just basically a formula that you're working with, and you
Yes.
just continue to work with that formula because it works. And it's especially from a marketing and advertising standpoint, because I got an early introduction to it, I know what I'm looking at pretty early into it to go, okay, so I know who your audience is. I know what it is that you're trying to cover. I know the little subtle things that you're trying to add in. I know the people that are a person away that you're trying. I get all of that. And in some cases, what I appreciate is the creativity of somebody that comes up with something new, and I'm like, "I see what you did there." Like those are the ones that I really appreciate to go, you know what?
Yeah,
It's something different. It's
yeah,
something where it required that
yeah.
creativity. Yes.
Different audiences, very different audiences. I remember, and again, I'm not going to mention the author name, but I remember once my daughter, she was in high school. She started reading this author, very popular author, and read a book. It's like, oh, I'm going to read another one. Got kind of halfway through that second book and thought, this person can't actually write well, but they have a formula. And she stopped reading. They have different audiences. But
Yes.
the person who writes The Lord of the Rings and the person who's a franchise author, they have different audiences.
Hmm.
And so that, that's great. If you want a franchise author and you enjoy that, it takes you 2 hours to read the book, and you've immersed yourself and you've been distracted from the chaos of the world for 2 hours reading the book. It served its purpose. Wonderful. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. I'm not, there's no
No,
judgment
no,
in
it's
this. It's just these are different worlds within publishing.
It's not a knock. I think that's universal in life. There are some things that people will watch and say, I like it because it allows me to turn my brain off. Because it's a formula and it's something where it's like I don't have to think. Like
Yeah.
I used to love mysteries and I got to understand formulas well enough that I could get 5 minutes into a show and go, oh, okay. I already know who the killer is. I already know this part. And in some cases, it can kind of ruin it for you when you get to that point. And then you actually have to be the person that shuts up and not says anything so you don't ruin it for everybody else. So
Yes.
yes. Once you become aware of frameworks and systems and how people are franchising certain things, there's a clear, what is it, delineation of I'm not your audience. There's an audience for you, but I'm not your audience because what I'm actually looking for is the creativity and the people that put that extra effort into it and their craft and things like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to ask this question, but
There.
I feel like we both kind of covered it ourselves. Of what
What
part
was
of
the
your
question?
work would lose meaning if AI did it for you?
Yeah. What would lose meaning? My creativity.
Hmm.
I love problem solving.
Hmm.
And I believe that I want to be a creative person. And I think that problem solving and creativity are very much packaged, right? Uh, and both creativity for creativity's sake and creativity to problem solve. I love both of them. And
Hmm.
that's not something I'd want to lose because they're both incredibly meaningful to me. And so if somebody said, "Well, you should just get AI to do all your work, it's possible." It's like, yeah, but there are things that I do that I love to do, and that it brings meaning to my life, right? You think of
Yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy, right? Survival, eventually we get to self-actualization.
Hmm.
What if something fits into my self-actualization, why would I give it away to anyone, let alone AI?
No, that's the gift. That's the gift in the process, and I'm right there with you. Yeah, there are just certain things where people are like, "Oh, well, why don't you outsource this part? It would be so much easier." And I'm like, "You don't know me at all." The fact that you would even ask me that question means that you don't know me at all. Like, this is why I have problems where I have a conversation with someone. I'm like, "Okay, here's what I need to know. Are you asking me to listen to validate what it is that you're saying, or are you asking me to listen because you want me to actually help solve your problem?" Because if you're just if you're asking me to just not say anything, not come up with a solution, not do anything else, then I got to turn my brain off. Like I don't function that way. It's like I'm listening to all the nuances. I'm listening to all the little things that you're saying and you're not saying. So that by the time you're done, I'm like, okay, I caught the pattern in it. I caught your agenda. I got all the things that you're telling me and the things that you're not telling me. And there are some friends that love that about me, and there are some friends that are like, I can't stand you because I was intentionally not saying those parts. And it's like, yeah, I heard what you
Yeah,
said in that, but then I also saw what you were doing. So,
yeah,
it's those things. And that's why I believe in what you're saying, that there are some people that they have their franchises, and then there are some people where the creativity is the thing that they actually appreciate. I have an appreciation for people that have a sense of originality. The moment I can deduce you that quickly, I'm a little less interested in what it is that you're bringing to the table, because then it's like, okay, I've read this book. And you may be a person, but like that's how I'm kind of looking at it. Like I read this book. I can already kind of see where you're going with it. I'll take it back to a social media post where I said something, and the person asked like, "Well, what are your qualifications for weighing in on something?" And masterful answer. And I was like, it was such a masterful dodge of saying, this is what my perspective is. but you never actually said what made you qualified to share your perspective.
Yeah.
And it triggered some people because I defined the difference between qualifications and perspective. And I said, you know what? Perspectives are always welcome. It's an opinion, and I love to get different perspectives because it rounds things off for me so that I can get it from different places and see the world from different angles that I may not see on my own. But that's different from qualifications. Qualifications means that you have some kind of experience, you've got some consequences, you've got something in it for you. Like, this is what made it so that I have a reason to be able to speak on it. If you don't have those things, then you're not qualified. You're just offering an opinion.
Right.
So I think there's a difference when it comes to things like that. And this is why I feel like there are the gurus that will talk on something because it's trending, but they're not qualified to talk on it. I equate it to the people that talk about, oh, well, yeah, if you've been out of work and you're struggling and you're getting to trying to get to 4 or 5 figures, you've been at seven for so long. What would you know about 4 or 5? Like, it's just, to me, it's insulting because I'm like, you have no idea what that struggle is like. You can read about it, but if you haven't had to worry about how you're going to pay your bills, if you haven't had any of the stress or anxiety that goes along with it, then you can't necessarily tell that story. What you're telling is what you remember or what you heard from someplace else. And second and third hand knowledge is not a qualification. It's a perspective, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that reminds me of something. We're going off on a little bit of a tangent, but it is AI related. So bear with
mhm,
me.
mhm,
So, sometimes authors say, well, people have to know that I'm qualified. And
yes,
yes, that's true. But I always say to an author, the idea of authority is more than just a qualification.
yes,
So let's take two medical doctors. One,
hmm,
highly qualified, has no empathy, thinks about their job as science, and
yes,
humans are things they do things to, equally qualified.
yes,
But who would, if they walked into a room and started talking to people, who do you think the public would think has more authority? The other person has a sister who was ill with the same thing growing up, and they watched her suffer and they never wanted anyone else to suffer. So they went to medical school with the idea of bringing a better quality of care to people with this
hmm,
particular. So when you think of authority, qualifications, that's part of it. If you're the same qualification, but authority is your story, your passion, your perspective, your
yes,
empathy, if you think about you're reading a book and you're introduced to the author, and one is like, yeah, one of the best brain surgeons in the world, but doesn't care if you die, and the other one's like, really, really is going to go out and talk to your family before surgery and
hmm,
like put their worries at ease. Who do you think actually knows more about the experience of brain surgery for a human being? The one who just has the knowledge and the qualifications, or the one who's walked families through the experience many times over? And so something AI can't do is that second piece, that walking families through brain surgery, and thereby afterwards writing a book that has deep meaning because they have authority beyond qualifications.
yes,
So I just
yes.
want to, because you talked about qualification. If you don't have qualifications, yeah, I agree. I think there's more to authority,
Mhm.
which you didn't use that word, by the way. So I'm not
No,
correcting. I'm
no, no,
just saying,
you're good, you're
yeah.
good. I
You were
appreciate you
talking about
adding in, and
qualifications,
yes.
but it reminded me of this idea about authority. Who has more authority? Somebody who has passion and cares and
Mhm.
has been immersed in the experience, or someone who has the qualifications and has robotically done things?
No, I think that is such a great point because I classify those in 2 completely different categories. I think someone that has the qualifications, very much what you said, if they have no bedside manner, you're not gonna be somebody that I want to have anything to do with. I
And
would
I
rather
don't want to
deal with
work
the
with
person
them.
that has the experience of empathy, that can
Yeah,
understand what it is. Because in some cases, like I've said it before, we all serve as examples in life. And my brother told me very early in life, he was like, you could either learn from your lesson the hard way or you can learn from somebody else's. I would rather watch somebody else struggle and go, ooh, yeah, I don't like the way that looks. I want no parts of that. Like, that makes me enough of an authority to go, you know what? I see what that looks like. I
not for
have enough
me.
empathy to go, you know what? Those are
Yeah,
consequences I want nothing to do with.
yeah.
Those are things that I may not have that firsthand experience, but I have enough experience or I've seen it enough times to be able to go, you know what? I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert. I'm going to give you my expert opinion on this and give that caveat of that's the difference. So authority to me is how well do you perform on being able to give someone the results that they're seeking out, as opposed to qualified is how
Care and
qualified are
empathy.
you to speak on it?
Yeah.
And those are
And so
completely
yeah.
different things to me.
And so guess who's the better author?
Mm,
Right? Guess who's the better
mm,
author? It's the person who's spent time connecting with patients and can now write in a way that connects with the reader versus the author who has the qualifications but writes in a very cold way. And so that's something that I think AI is not there yet, right? Will
mhm.
it get there? Probably. I don't know. So I
We
imagine
will
this
see.
world, right? So when we talk about these things and I'm like, not yet, not yet. I imagine this world where this child is born
Mm,
today, grows up, sees his sister struggling with a medical condition, goes to medical school, becomes a doctor, walks through
mm,
many families through this with compassion and empathy and qualifications and all these things. Now, because he was born today, instead of having a journal, he's been keeping like an AI journal. And so AI actually knows everything he knows. He did all his
mm,
studying in AI. He did all his journaling in AI. AI knows everything about how he saw his sister struggle, knows everything he learned in medical school, knows every family, every case he's ever had. And then that man goes to AI and says, I want to write a book.
mm.
Can AI then write a good book? I don't see why not.
Okay. Okay. My mind is just like I'm just looking running through all the scenarios to go, could it? But depending on what it is that you're giving as an input, sure.
Yeah,
Because you're giving it the context that it wouldn't have on its own, because again, we're going back to just looking at the patterns, just looking at what it's getting from all these other people. There's a difference between seeing something and reading it on a paper
yeah,
or having
yeah,
reading
I
it in
agree.
text.
Yeah,
So
but this
yeah,
person
yeah,
has put their words into AI, has put their soul, they've told AI when they cried, how much they cried, what they cried about. An AI
yeah,
doesn't know anything about the outside world, just knows it's been this person's AI, and this AI knows everything about this person. That AI would be a great partner in writing a book
yes,
compared to
yes.
the AI we have in today's world. And so whenever I say not yet, I
Mhm,
say it because who knows, maybe there will become a time when a child born today, everything about their life, everything they think, feel, learn lands up in
mm.
AI and they have their own little personal AI memory bank. And from there, why couldn't AI write a book for them? And they go through it and change what they want. I don't see why
Well,
not.
to an extent, I'll say that we have it. We've got custom AI agents and custom GPTs that learn as we go because we're giving it all the context that
Yeah,
says, here's everything that I want you to know. Here's everything that I want you to pay attention to. So every time I enter something in, you're basing it off of that foundation that I'm giving you. And then you just continue to build on that foundation. So
yeah.
I would say that it's here. It's just
But they
what I
don't
think we're
have.
talking about is just the difference between someone going into a general conversation with AI versus someone that's created something custom because it gave it all the context that it needed. And I think it's a very important thing to highlight because we're not saying that AI can't do these things. We're saying that you have to give it the context and everything in order for it to be able to do it and teach it what to listen for, what to
Exactly.
watch for, what to learn, and then it will absolutely be able to do something like that. I almost equate it to I know that, children, where do they learn language from? Because I know some kids that, if we were talking about Spanish earlier before the podcast, I
Yes.
know some kids that grew up in a Spanish home, but they can't speak Spanish.
Right. Hmm.
So it's just what we see every day. I learned English because I live in a house where people spoke English. I learned other languages from being around people that spoke other languages. My Spanish only comes back to me when I'm in Spanish speaking countries. Like if you start to ask me certain things here, I might get it, I might not, but then it gets stronger and stronger once I'm in that environment because I'm surrounded by it. I'm engulfed in that experience, and I'm so focused on trying to make sure that I can communicate with those people that I'm naturally going to pick up on some things, even if I don't know the words. We're still able to communicate, and that was one of the things that we actually talked about. Yeah, qualified authority, completely different things because I am not fluent in Spanish, but if you drop me in a Spanish speaking place, Portuguese, all of these different places that I've been, I've still been able to navigate and get around because there are certain things that just are human nature that people can see when you're stressed. People can see when you have certain things going on, and they will fill in the gaps of the things that words don't allow, or don't provide that extra context for. Okay, well, I'm gonna flip it and say, have you ever automated anything, then realized that you lost something important by doing so?
Yes, absolutely. So when AI first came out, I was really curious and very playful. I'm like, let's try everything, right? Let's experiment on what works, what doesn't. Because instead of not putting anything in, I was
Hmm.
more, let's try this and let's try this and let's try this. So I let AI write emails for my email list for a little while.
Okay.
And I had an extremely high open rate. And then I let AI write some emails for me. And I actually would do the first paragraph. I would still write the first paragraph because when I write my emails, I'm writing them. They're about me.
Hmm.
They're about you. They're about the people reading. And my open rate went, even though I was writing the first paragraph. And it was so interesting. It's like, and I had my open rate at the time before I let AI try writing it for me was
Hmm.
a little above industry standard, right? So I was above the industry standard. I write very personal emails to people. I'm often asking them to respond, and then people respond. And this is my email list. People respond, and then I respond back, and we have conversation. It's wonderful because I think of my email list as a way to communicate, not as a way to
Hmm.
broadcast. But I think, thinks of it as a way to broadcast. And so I let AI write some emails for me, and the results were not great. And so I said, "Okay, never doing that again, at least for now." Sorry, it would say, Sean, do you know how much time it would save me if AI could just write my emails for me? But my email list wants to communicate with me. They don't
Yes.
want me to have AI just broadcast it. So now I can use AI in email writing.
Hmm.
I can go out and say, "Hey, what's the news in the publishing world this week?" Go grab, go grab news about A, B, C, and D. And it can bring me links. I can go read them. If there's something I'm like, "Well, summarize that article for me." And I could do like a 2 sentence summary and I could put that in my email.
Hmm.
But write my email? No, no. Even the summary is, but yeah, I mean I could, AI summary of this article, but no, it'll never write my emails again because I'm communicating with people, I'm not broadcasting. And I lost something
Yeah.
when I tried it. And I know there are people out there who will disagree with me. "Oh, you just don't know how." It's like, no, I'm pretty smart, but I think my people really want to hear AI just can't grab my tone, can't grab
Hmm.
the communication I'm going for, at least not yet. And so I went back to writing my own.
I love that because I think you've also defined the difference between talking to everyone and talking to specific people. There are people that are on your email list because they want you. They want the personal touch that you provide. They want your personality. They want what's authentically you. And the moment that you changed or it felt that it changed, even if you had the opening paragraph still the same, they're like, yeah, there's something about it. And,
Right?
all it takes is that something about it that doesn't sit well with someone for someone to get off of something or someone and go, you know what? Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know what they did, but they did something. And that almost goes back to the recipes of cooking. If you change an ingredient, there are some things that you can change, you can add, and it will still remain the same as far as the foundation. But if you remove that, then the whole thing just tastes different and you will just never appreciate it the same way because you always question, is it going to have the thing that I'm used to or is it going to have or is it going to be missing? And you'll never quite enjoy it the same way because you feel like it's an unfortunate surprise, I guess would be
Yeah.
a way to be able to put that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I write goofy emails. I have an entire email thread for one, because I do different things, planning books, writing books. I have one
Mhm.
entire email thread that's essentially based on movies. So whenever it's like one email about, let's say, people who get in the way of your journey of writing your book. I'll use The
Mhm.
Wizard of Oz, right? So there you are, happily like Dorothy, running, going through the yellow brick road, thinking you're heading
Very
off to
nice.
this beautiful Wizard of Oz when your book's going to be done. And along come these flying monkeys, and these are, you know, um, what like imposter syndrome, and
Mhm.
let's name. I'll do like goofy things like that in my emails. And because it's like I like movies and I like stories, and so I use things like that for emails. And it's goofy. So some people are like, "Oh, she's dumb," but other people will laugh because it's like, "Okay, Melody's kind of goofy." Right? Kind of a goofy storyteller. And I resonate with it. And she's kind of entertaining, but also educating. And so I like
Mhm.
her emails. And I'm going to respond because she asked. And I believe her because she took time to write this goofy email about, all the people who help you along the way and all of the people who get in your way. And she used The Wizard of Oz to frame it. Right? I have a whole series of emails that I frame in movies. And it's fun. And I
It
get to be
is.
creative.
It is.
Yeah.
I love a good analogy.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was introduced to metaphors and similes, and what stood out to me is it's saying something, but just changing it slightly to be able to go, now let me give it to you from a different perspective. And to me, that requires a level of creativity and insight or nuance of truly being able to understand something in order to be able to reframe it in a way and in a context that I don't think other people may look at. And that's one of the reasons why I love comedians, because they can start at one point, talk about all these other things, and the ones that are really good will bring it back around to a point to go, I don't know how you took me from here to here to here, and you brought it back to this point, and I cannot argue with that point at all. I love that people are able to be able to do stuff like that.
Yeah. And
I
and
think
and
that's
now
a level
we're
of
we're
creativity.
and now we're taking that creativity and we're turning what we do, the planning and writing of a book, into kind of a game, right? We're having
Yeah.
fun with it because we
Yeah.
believe that people should have fun. And I'm not doing it alone. It's we're doing the team is kind of working together. But that's what we're doing right now. And everyone is really excited about doing the work, let
Hmm.
alone showing it to clients. And every time I talk to anybody about what I'm doing, they're like, "Oh, that's now I want to write. That sounds like a fun way to write a book." Because writing a book feels daunting. It's like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna have fun with it, So again, creativity and having fun, and just showing who you are, and that's why people come to me because they resonate with that, not because I'm looking to make money by going on AI and like writing something well and sending that off, right? So that's just who I am. These are my values. This is what matters to me.
Well, I think that's really important because you're talking about the difference between selling something once and being able to have people stick around. And I believe that anyone can sell something once, maybe even twice. But after that, it actually has to be able to deliver on what those expectations are. It has to have some you in it. I think what you've described is more of a behind the scenes where there are AI can give you the content and it's going to give you the structured thing where it's just like, okay, well, this is what all the things that you need to know. What you're doing is you're adding in your personality. You have to have a certain personality that's going to tell people about you when you can say, okay, The Wizard of Oz. Okay, so again, guilty pleasures. You watch The Wizard of Oz? I remember The Wizard of Oz. And then it's just giving people things to connect on so that they
Right.
have more reason to want to be able to connect with you and go, you know
Yeah.
what, now I don't feel like we're just limited on the content that you shared with me. I got something else from you that gives me something to be able to connect on. So when I see you, I can say, oh, yeah, do you remember this in The Wizard of Oz? Do you remember that in The Wizard of Oz? And it gives someone something to be able to connect with. And I think that's where people may miss the mark if they just take whatever it is that it puts out. If they don't give it the context to be able to say, this is who I am, I still need to have this part be within whatever it is that we're automating or whatever it is that we're doing. So, yeah, I think that behind the scenes is something that gives people reason to be able to stand out. Like I said, I'm sarcastic. I will see gifs, I will see memes and all kind of things. I have a automation that's set up where anytime I see something, I will either screenshot it or copy the image, and then I will say, when I saw this, this is what it made me think of. Some cases it's just motivational because I realize,
Yeah.
like on Tuesdays, one of the jokes that I have is I'll talk to someone. I'm like, "Hey, happy at least it's Tuesday," and they're like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, for my corporate days, Tuesdays kind of sucked because it's like I realized we got through Monday, But Tuesday is just reminding me that I got at least 2 more days before I can start feeling like I'm a little closer to the weekend. So at least it's Tuesday. We're seeing some progress. So there's just these things, these little things that you have to be able to add in your personality for people to be able to understand more about who you are and what you can expect. Okay, so I'm going to bring it over to the three circles of work, and
Sure.
this is somewhat of a framework where we talked about, or at least I talked about, understanding your workflow to identify where you can add value. And
Hmm.
now we're going to draw circles around those value points, and I want to kind of walk through those circles. So circle one
Sure.
being automate.
Yes.
It's repetitive, time consuming, low judgment required. So it can be scheduling data, data entry, initial research, compilation, formatting, the things that are kind of like the throwaway work that it doesn't necessarily require real brain cells. It's
Yeah.
something where it's repetitive enough where it's a habit. You know that you need to do it. It's like I don't stop to think about how I'm tying my shoe. I just do it. There are just certain things that you know that you have to be able to do. Then there's circle two, there's collaborate. And that's actually, in some cases, my favorite part because that's where AI can suggest, you can refine, you can decide. One of the things that I love doing with AI is I've already talked about like I will watch something and I will give it a transcript and say, give me your take on it. And then I will
Right.
say, okay, here's what I got from it. And when I look at the 2, then it gives me not just my perspective because 'cause I'm basing it on my experiences, but I also know that AI is pulling it from all these other places, so it's gonna give me perspectives that I may or may not have had. So that can be content drafting, that can be data analysis, research summaries, brainstorming. Those are things that you can do, and those collaborations is just another circle. And then circle 3 is what we actually preserve. And those are the things that, like I said, I know that I think we can both kind of agree, or I will speak for myself without throwing you under the bus with it, but I'm solution orientated and result driven. If there's no opportunity for me to be able to really get to the result, get to the solution, get to that. At some point, I'm going to start trying to tune out where it's like, I mean, so we're just going through the motions of something and I'm not going to be able to get to the end of it. It's like watching a movie and I get to the end of it and they hit me with a to be continued or they left it like without the end properly. I feel so robbed. I'm so disgruntled by the end of it to go, what a chip. Like you made me pay for something. You took my time that I can't get back. And now you're telling me that in order for me to be able to get to the end of that or see what it is that I invested so much time in, that I
Yeah.
have to invest in it all over again, my trust is
Yes.
completely lost. Like if you hit
Correct.
me with a two-parter of something and you don't tell me that there's two parts going into it, and I got my expectations on when we get to the end of it, I'm gonna get some kind of resolution. You'll get that money once. You will not get it again. Preserve. It's the high meaning, identity defining, craft centered. It's those things where it's like you go into with the expectations of if I invest this, then I'm going to get this. And if you don't have that on that part of it, then I think that's something where it can really throw stuff off. And I think when we're talking about partnering with AI and leveraging AI, there are the things that you can hand off that are administrative things that you can train it, you can give it a job description and tell it just do these things. It doesn't require thought, it doesn't require the nuance or the context because you can give it the basic context. Carry the one, you know what I mean, with a certain math and certain things like that. But there are the human only things that we have to protect fiercely and make sure that we're preserving those things. We're holding on to it ourselves because that's the family recipe. That's the Wizard of Oz story. That's all the things that show us who we are and make sure that we're covering those things. So within those circles, is that something where you see something where it can be where it can interchange? Because I think that like there's the hybrids where you can lean on collaboration and you can lean
Uh-huh.
on preserving certain things and you can also lean on being able to use the administrative stuff. But I don't know that there's necessarily absolutes. Not
Yeah.
anymore.
No.
Like you can be the person that holds on to something, but then how efficient are you being?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that they're great circles. I think at
Hmm.
times they may be a Venn diagram.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
right? Yeah, they're great circles. There may be times when they're a Venn diagram. You know, automating, for example, something that people really dislike doing is their metrics. Right? So I
Yes.
have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, you have this podcast, right? And knowing your metrics is a really good idea. But a lot of people don't really want to know and it's just a repetitive, it's time consuming, it's,
Hmm.
and really, once you understand, you just plug the numbers in. If you just give the numbers if you have a project or an agent in AI and you can just give them the numbers, they can spit out, "Oh, you're trending up here, you're trending down here,
Mhm.
and so that's something so easily to automate, collaborate to put it together in the first place, but after that collaboration, it would be automated. Collaborating, I think what comes to mind for me is we use not our GPT, but we use somebody else's GPT
Mm.
for our YouTube SEO.
Nice.
And it works really well. And that is very much a collaboration. We know our content. They know what may or may not work
Mhm.
on YouTube SEO. And then we also then take that and we put it into something we've purchased that then goes and takes a word and searches it on YouTube. So this is automated, searches it on YouTube and brings us back a percentage. Like, yeah, 100% you'll be number one,
Nice. Yeah.
or like this is 20%. So we collaborate with a specific SEO on our, sorry, specific GPT on our YouTube SEO, also
Mhm.
using something that somebody else has built that's automated to give us a score so we can go through everything and figure out because we know our content, the GPT knows what might or might not work well. They know better
Mhm.
than we do what might work well, and then the other piece can score it for us. So there's a definite collaboration there, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then preserve, and then there's automation there as well. There's
Mhm.
collaboration and there's automation. And preserve, I mean, I say we're turning this into a game, right? But all of the information that we have, all of the how-tos and the information you need, the how to do it, or the key points, all of that, that's something that we own. That's our intellectual property. And it doesn't matter how we put it out into the world, it's still our intellectual property. It's still something we want to preserve. And yes, you can go to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever and ask them like how to publish a book, but we've like the people on the team have written books, published books, ghostwritten books, edited books.
Mhm.
We have a lot of experience and empathy and authority and purpose and passion. And so that's something we want to preserve. This is ours. It doesn't matter how we put it out. Today we could put it out as a game, tomorrow we could do something completely different, but we'll preserve that information and we'll continue to add to it because that's our intellectual property. So just as examples on like where that might fit in my world, just to give examples of it. I hope that's
No,
helpful.
that's really helpful, and that's context that I keep saying context, 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 because we want to make something where it's universal, where just because I have my experiences with it doesn't mean that it can't be used in another way. And it's really about identifying the different ways to be able to use things and to really just leverage it in a way that makes sense. Okay, well, with that, we've talked about that part. Now let's talk about actual decision making.
Sure.
I know that we covered basically the 5 ethical pillars because we're talking about not just putting content out, but of the ethical responsibility that comes along with it. So last episode, we talked about the 5 pillars. It's verification, attribution, authenticity, value, and responsibility. They're not just principles to follow, they're the skeleton of your actual decision-making framework. So today we can actually add more color to it and give a little more context to how that may actually work. So it's asking questions like, what problem am I actually trying to solve? And
Mm,
is this about doing more about, well, it's let me go back to what you said. Should I be doing this? It's those follow-up questions, those clarifying questions that if we ask, it starts to check those different things, those different pillars to make sure that we're on the right page and we're being very intentional with the stuff that we're putting out. So what I would say is there are definitely warning signs. If you are saying, well, everyone else is doing it,
yeah.
I should probably automate this. It would be faster. There are things where you can say, you know what, this task would take me 5 hours a week. So if that's something where it's going to take me 5 hours a week and I don't really need to do it, then sure, that's something you can take a look at being able to automate. But for the things where if it's that 5 hours is the very thing that makes you stand out, is that something that you really want to, ethically just kind of hand off? Because if you're handing it off to someone else, it's almost going back to that standpoint of not quite the ghostwriter, but it's you're asking someone else to be responsible for the thing that's supposed to stand out. And then when someone asks those follow up questions of you, it's like, okay, well, how do we know this is actually you? So I would
Yes.
say some of
Like
the
my
warning
emails.
signs. Yes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my emails.
It's just, It's really just looking at, what are some of the things that if you give up that part of you, are you ever really gonna be able to get it back? And if you have to get it back, how hard do you have to work to be able to get it back? And I think that's part of the questions that we're actually asking. I imagine that you see it way more than I do on the author side, because on the marketing and advertising side, it's a gray area.
Mm,
There are some people that have principles and care about stuff like that, and then there are other people that are like, "You know what? The whole point of this industry is to make money, and to in its own way, marketing and advertising is about manipulation and
yeah.
making sure that you understand people and manipulating in a way to get them to react the way that you want them to react." So, I don't know that I'm qualified to speak on the principles when it comes to that part.
I look at marketing as something differently than you do in that way.
I'm jaded, yes.
I think of marketing as product development.
Mm.
Right? So I go out into the world and I talk to the authors and like, what do you need? Oh, well, writing a book is really hard and I want to give up and it feels so dry and I feel so alone and I feel this. I'm like, okay, well, what if I turned it into a game? Oh, I'd love that. That would be way better. Okay. I'll I will so instead of, Pepsi makes Pepsi and then goes out in the world and tries to pawn Pepsi off on people and does, I'd like oh, that's Coke. I'd like to teach the world, like,
Mhm, mhm.
they do all these things because 'cause they're trying to pawn something off that might not be good for you, that maybe you don't want if you really thought about it. Whereas I, as an entrepreneur, I actually flip that around. And my marketing and advertising is based on what the market is asking me for. It's like, "Oh, you want that? Great." And sometimes I'll go out and I'll say, "What are your problems? Well, here's a couple ways I could solve it. What are you into?" And they're like, "We're into that." Great. I'll go back and I'll make that for you. And that's a very different way to approach marketing than making a product, which is the traditional marketing, right? We'll make
Yes.
Coca-Cola and we'll make Pepsi and we'll go out and we'll compete and we'll try to convince people that they want this thing with chemicals in it that may not be good for them and may give them diabetes or whatever.
Mhm.
I don't know what Coke and Pepsi do to people. But you see the difference, right? And so I approach it in a non-traditional way. Yeah.
Yes, I will circle back to it from the extent of someone that's been on the corporate side in the rooms
Yes.
where some of these decisions are made.
Yes.
These are people that are creating trends and
Yes.
saying, "Well, we're gonna create this, and then we're gonna build the audience for it." I've seen it from the music side where the way that I used to say it is there were A&R reps that could say, "Okay, we have a talented person, now we need to go find the audience for them," or they would say, "We have an audience, now we need to go find the person."
Yes.
The way that I would explain it in a more universal way is the saying of supply and demand. Supply and demand is basically saying, "We're gonna create something, and then we're gonna create the demand for it." And
Yes.
that's more the corporate traditional version of something where you create it and you decide, you know what, I'm going to figure out a way to make you want this. And it's just all the clever ways that they go about doing it. And then what I kind of separate it for when I talk to entrepreneurs and small business owners is to say, that's the corporate version. The version for you, where you have a shorter runway, you don't have the budget to be able to put behind it, is demand and supply. You identify what's actually in demand and then you supply that. So
And that's what I do.
that's the more principled version of marketing and
That's how
advertising.
I
So
approach it,
yes,
yes.
when I say I'm jaded, it's because I've grown up decades looking at that version, and then I moved over to this version, and I have the conversations. And when I see people trying to use that version in small business, I can only shrug. I can try to point
Often
out to
doesn't
them
work
that
for small business.
I mean, it's just the runway, the amount of time it takes to be able to plan a thought, to be able to sway someone and do all the
Yeah,
rest of those things. It
yeah.
works in those larger environments because they have the money to put behind it.
And the
And they
budget.
also have the people that are crafty enough to be able to understand people well enough, their psychology and all kind of things that go with it, to be able to say, okay, I know how to be able to, and again, I'm just going to use the word manipulate. I know how to be able to trigger certain things to get the reaction that I want. And then I'll use that to be able to get them to have the reaction that I want them to be able to have. So demand and supply is different. It's listening to what people prioritize and saying, okay, well, that's a void. That's something that's not being addressed. Let me fill that void. Let me address that problem. That's a much shorter sales cycle. And that's something that is, at least for me, that's something that allows me to sleep at night. So I'd much rather be on that side, and that's one of the reasons why as much as people are like, "Oh, well, you made really good money on the corporate side." I'm like, "I did." But I also know what they were doing with some of that, and yeah, I don't wanna be part of that part,
Wasn't your
so
thing.
no,
Fair,
no, no,
fair.
not when I see it being used in the wrong way. So, how do you balance efficiency with integrity, especially when no one
Mm,
else would know the difference? So, I kind of gave the supply and demand versus demand and supply because there are some people that know the difference, there are some people that don't know the difference, and then somewhere in there, you have to decide where your principles and your integrity lies, because are you trying to get over on someone to get them to do what you want, or are you trying to actually see that what it is that they're asking, and that's how you're getting the results that you're getting?
yeah. My clients know the difference.
Okay.
My clients see the difference. That's my audience. My audience, sometimes they've gone through the other side where they
Mhm.
feel like they have been manipulated by others, and now they are a little bit more I do sometimes clients will come and they've been manipulated, they've spent so much money and gotten so little from it that they don't feel safe working with me. And I get that. It's like you've been through the ringer as an author and you don't know who to trust. And I'm saying I'm trustable, but how do you know? Right. So there are people who don't know the difference who are so fearful. But most of my clients, they are sometimes they have been through the ringer. I've had people like, oh, I started working with this other editor, it didn't work. And part of it isn't just it's not that I'm better, it's that it's just a better match. Let me make
Style,
that
yeah.
clear. It's not about one editor's better than the other necessarily. It's about a better match. But so that's what I do. I have this audience. I go out and I ask them what they're looking for. I create that for them. I find out what their needs are. How do I meet those needs? And so I've lost track of your question.
No, 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 you've answered it. It's that fine line between integrity and just doing what you know that you need to be able to do in order to be able to, get them to sign the check at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
don't want that.
yeah,
I find that in the author world, getting someone to sign a check and just write a book, they'll end up not selling any,
yeah,
right? And so,
yeah.
and the way I work is I say, who's your audience? Let's go out and figure out what they need. And then let's write a book for them. Right. And so I use that same strategy when I'm working with author clients. And that works because then you're building up trust over time. And I get a lot of referrals. I get a lot of people
Thank you.
who yeah, I
Yes.
get a lot of referrals. A lot of people say, "No, you need to work with Melody. You've gotta go work with Melody. Her and her team, they're the right people for you." Because everyone feels they've gotten their money's worth. They feel like they trusted me. A lot of people say, "Melody has a lot of patience."
You do have a lot of patience. I've tested your patience. You do have a lot of patience. Yes.
A lot of my clients say when they're referring me, it's like, "Melody has a lot of patience." I don't think of myself as being particularly patient. I understand that mind, that back and forth when you're an author
Mhm.
and like, do I do this? Do I do that? And that indecisiveness. I don't think I have a lot of patience. I think I just have a deep understanding of the struggle, which I think is slightly different than having patience. Because patience is when you don't really understand, but you're gonna
Mm.
wait anyways.
It can be very folded arm. Yes, it could be very folded arm. I will say that you are a very nurturing and empathetic person.
Hmm, right. It's part of my
So
authority.
yeah, I think you're a very nurturing and empathetic person. You empower people and you nurture their gifts and bring it out of them and allow them to be able to find parts of themselves that they may not have known. And I don't think people can really do that if they're not empathetic, because you're on one side of the table. And if you don't know what it's like to be on the other side of the table, then you can't necessarily relate. So you
Yes.
saying that you're understanding, yes. Let me also put nurturing and empathetic to it,
Mm,
because there are going to be some people that say, "Oh, I understand a lot," and yet they're not nurturing and empathetic. They just understand the situation. It's just the way that I used to describe it is someone could say, "Oh, I feel for you," and I was like, "And yet you feel like you're not touching anything."
yeah. Yeah.
You can
So I
understand something, but you can relate to it, but you don't care
yeah.
enough about it to do anything about it. So I
Exactly.
don't
So
think
I have
that's
that,
you.
which AI doesn't have, and then I have what AI has is being able to hold a lot of information
Yes.
and bringing complexity to simplicity, which I don't know if AI is good at that or not. I haven't really seen that a lot in AI, so my jury's out on that one. So Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna comment on that because I can't say 100%. Like, I try not to make blanket statements. I'm sure it may feel that way for some people. In my experiences are my experiences, so I'm not gonna say anything across the board because maybe someone can say, "Well, that's what I got from it." Well, I mean, bully for you. I'm gonna say, "I'm glad it worked out for you." I'm not touching that part. I will say, now when we talk about identity alignment, the question becomes, does this move me closer to or further from who I wanna be professionally? And that kind of goes back to understanding the integrity part and where the line is and what it is that you want to be able to cover. So I feel like I skipped ahead in a way because I feel like we covered some of these things and by asking you
Perfectly
the
fine.
initial question, we would answer some of these questions. So do you want to go further into that? Is it something where you feel like you want to add more to it because
For
it can be
identity,
more? So does this move me closer to or further from who I want to be professionally?
I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, we've talked about it quite a lot, but
Hmm.
what I will say is, for people out there listening, and maybe you're in a startup or you want to be an author, but you're not there yet. At the beginning, integrity is challenging because you don't have money coming in, right? So it's very easy to say, I will have more integrity when there's money coming in, right? And
Love
I
that you said
understand
that.
that
Yes.
battle. And so there's this balance between, it's nice to have an identity, but it's also nice to eat.
Mhm.
And I do understand that challenge. For me, where I am now, I'm more interested in my identity and my values. That's why people refer people to me. And but I have had times where I've worked with clients who I thought I really shouldn't be working with this client. And it turned out to be a very bad experience, probably for both of us. We weren't a good fit.
Mhm.
And, but I did it because I was younger, I was newer to my business. And so, know what your identity is, know how you want to align it, and then understand that there will be times when you will make decisions that may not align perfectly,
Mhm.
because there's another value like feeding your children that takes over from this identity value. So I just want to say that. So, if AI is going to make you money in the short run and that's going to put food on the table for your family, I'm not going to judge that. I hope that if you're in that situation that you come to a place where you can build a business around your values, around your identity, so you can feel really good about yourself and put food on the table. Yeah. And if AI can help you get there, great.
I love that you covered that because that is something that definitely comes up, and it's a question for early stage businesses that have to ask themselves that question more regularly than any other business out there. And I will kind of move on to the warning sides of feeling vaguely uncomfortable, but can't really articulate why. Like, you're doing something, it's just like, eh.
Yeah, yeah,
And then it's just when you can catch yourself saying, I guess this is how things are done now.
yeah. Giving up.
It's where you get to the point where you start to compromise your principles because in some cases you see other people getting over and then you're like, well, I mean, I'm doing it this way and I feel like I'm doing it the right way. I don't know if there's a really way to say the right way. I know what I think the right way is, but my right way isn't the same as somebody else's right way. So that's one of the reasons why I say don't evaluate yourself based on somebody else's principles.
I agree.
Because if you're evaluating on what someone else does and they can sleep at night, then great for them that they can sleep at night. I know what I can't get away with because I have a conscience and I have certain things that drive me. And it's just if I veer away from that, then I work even harder to try to be able to correct it. And at the end of the day, if I had just stuck with my principles in the first place, then I wouldn't have compromised myself and I wouldn't given all that extra effort to go along with it. And then the other warning sign is defending the choice more than feeling good
Yes.
about it.
Yes.
And that one is that one I think a lot of people know where it's just like you get a little defensive and you're like, well, I mean, this is if you have to justify it,
Yeah. That's letting your ego get in the way sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
It can be
Yeah,
hard.
so it can be difficult. Again, I love the fact that you spoke about the tough decisions that early decision makers make. I'm an odd bird. I would rather struggle. This is where I say there's certain things I come by honestly. I got that from my mother. I know exactly where I got it from. I
Yeah.
know times that I've seen her struggle through things, and I'm like, as I got older, why would you do that to yourself? And I think it's because I have my principles. There's just some things I'm not going to compromise for. And I would rather go through that and have that lesson so that I know that I will never go through it again than to compromise myself and then have to live with that version of myself that someone else is out there and can turn around and say, yeah, that's who you are. And she's just like, you will never be able to say that's who you are because I'm never going to put myself in a position where someone has that story to tell. So that's just ingrained in me based on who I have as a mother and how she raised me. But God bless anybody else that can do it in a different way.
Yeah.
I would say the better approach is this frees me to do more of what I love. This lets me serve more people without sacrificing quality. This handles what I'm not good at. And so I can focus on what I am good at. So these are the things that, like, if you know it's something that could technically compromise who you are as a person and it's something that you can offload or you can refer to someone else, by all means, go ahead and do that. Like this way, it allows you to be able to do what you need to be able to do without necessarily having those kind of issues. I know sometimes I'll talk to people and they're like, "Oh, well, I just want someone to do this." And my thing is, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not the person for you. I can tell you somebody that would do something like that for you, but I specifically am not the person for that because I know what the results are going to be, and I don't want that. Like I said, I don't want that story being attached to my name. I'll bring it back to value preservation. What am I protecting by saying no to this? And what am I enabling by saying yes?
Yeah. Oh, great questions, right? You want to, again, back to the same. I have an identity as a business owner. I have identity as a parent. I have values as a business owner. I have values as a parent. Sometimes these things clash,
Mhm.
and so what do I gain? Sometimes it can be hard not to compromise. I get it. I just want to say that. Uh, but what do I I gain something for my business or for myself as long as I'm not compromising my values. And I understand there are times when values clash and can be
Yes,
compromised. It's not what I'm
absolutely.
talking about.
Yeah.
But you know, what's the cost of the gain? Am I gaining something based on that matches my values? Am I gaining something but I'm losing my values? Right? So what am I gaining? What am I losing? We're hoping that we are gaining something while maintaining values, right?
Mhm.
Or we're losing something in as in we're no longer doing a task. Uh, we're no longer doing a task, but we're gaining time. So there's that interplay between gaining and losing. Yeah, and I'll say this too. I was talking to a university student the other day,
Mhm.
and this kid was telling me, yeah, I know, university student kid, but to me, yes. Uh, and this kid was telling me that they were talking to their classmates, and a lot of them are using AI for their homework. And I was like, well, what do you think? And this person said, well, I'm at university to learn to think. So I shouldn't let AI do like think because yes, I may gain a good grade or I may gain something, but what am I losing? I'm losing that skill that I came for in the first place. And so we want to think about that. We don't want to give, in using AI, we don't want to give up the values that are important to me. Like I've said, creativity is important to me. So I don't want to give that up in order to gain something. I don't want to give up creativity to gain money. That doesn't work for me personally. Everyone's different, but that doesn't work for me personally. And so we want to think about that as we're deciding what we're going to use AI for. Right? Are we going to use it for
Absolutely.
our homework so we get good grades? But then when I get out to the workforce, I don't have the critical thinking skills I need. I don't actually have the proper research skills I need, or whatever. So that's
Mhm.
just a good. And is that trade off worth it? Is it worth it to you to get good grades but, you'll end up a middle manager all your life because you haven't learned what you really need to, really expand your career. So that's how I see that.
I'm just snickering at myself for so many different reasons. What do I stand to gain reminds me of a scene in No Country to Old Men. I can't remember exactly what the name is, but it's the scene where he comes in and he flips the coin. He says heads or tails. And the guy's like, well, I got to know what I stand to win. And my thing is, dude, you're asking the wrong question. That guy is creepy and he looks like he's up to no good. When somebody flips a coin and they ask me something like that and you look like you mean me harm, I don't care what it is that I stand to gain. I want to know what it is that I stand to lose.
Yeah.
So when you say
Yes.
heads or tails, my thing is you ask what you stand to gain. My question is, I don't know if I want to play this game because I don't know what I stand to lose. What if I guess this wrong? What happens? So
Great question.
I'm very consequent orientated. So
Great
I
story.
think that's where that actually flips for me. I get that other people look at things in the other way. They're probably more glass half full than I am, but I've just seen a certain level of life to understand that um, there are consequences for things, and I can appreciate momentary happiness, but I also know that I'm a kid that when I was a kid, I would make decisions based on momentary happiness, and then I would have to live with the consequences of it. And in hindsight, and this is why they say hindsight is 2020. Yeah, no. Once I realized that part, I was like, yeah, I need to think about what happens after. Like, yes, I can enjoy that in a moment. So I snickered to myself when you said middle management because I'm like, I know some middle managers that cut some corners and did some things, and they're like, you know what? Well, I got to, and I'm like, okay, this is why I am perfectly comfortable going through the mud because when it comes time to those situations, we're in a time now where a lot of people are getting laid off, and they used to say, Sean, I don't understand how you do like this consulting work. Like, I got a steady check, I haven't had to worry about anything. How you going through all of that? Sometimes I realize you're struggling. I'm like, do you realize now that, like, if I wanted to go back into any of these corporate worlds, any of these jobs, like, my resume is built so that I can say I can go in and do just about anything. You've been doing the same thing for years, and the moment they get rid of that job being done that way, then
Yeah.
you've got the learning
Yeah.
curve that you have to figure everything else out. So, yeah, I mean, that's a tough one for me. I think there's life lessons in that, and I'm we're not here to put a gambling gown on, you know what I mean? I'm not here to judge anybody. Whatever it is that you're doing is what you're doing. And that's not what we're doing here. We're just having a conversation about making choices and being intentional with it and being accountable for it and understanding what the consequences look like. So,
That was a great lesson you learned as a kid. It's a marker of success. People who can't put aside their immediate gratification often don't get very far because they're constantly just whatever gratifies them at the moment. People who can put that aside and say, okay, when I get there, gratification, I can have even more and I can have it more easily. They tend to succeed, right? So that was a really important lesson you learned. Some people don't learn it.
yeah, well, I mean, again, that's God bless her. That's what I learned from my mother. Sometimes it's to my own detriment. She is my hero. If something comes to me too easy, I get nervous because I'm like, I don't feel like I worked hard enough for it. Like I don't, and those there's the natural gift. So sometimes I will create my own obstacles just so I can feel like I actually earned it. And it's not the best thing. It is a very
No,
bad habit of mine, but
yes,
it is I know where it comes from and I know why I have that, and it's something that if I almost feel like if a few more people thought that way, they could avoid some of the things that they run into, but we all learn the way
fair.
that we learn, and there's a joke that my friend says, he says, "They'll learn or they won't." I'm someone that's like, I only wanna learn that lesson once. If I have to learn it more than once, then it's, first time, shame on you, second time, shame on me. Everything that comes after that is just doom on you. And that is just the experience that I've had of I don't wanna learn that lesson but so many different ways. Okay, so reversibility test. If I
Mm.
don't like how this changes my work, can I go back? And I think that one's really important because pivots are something that not enough people know that they should be taking advantage of.
Yes, and here's let's juxtapose two things.
Mm,
One, my emails, right?
mhm.
I went to AI. I'm like, well, can AI write my emails? I didn't like it. So easily reversed. I just stopped using AI. Now let's imagine I've got my AI that does the developmental edit, and I only put in books that I have express written permission, right? Let's imagine I didn't do that. Let's imagine that I was not being this ethical and
Mhm.
I was any book I got my hands on from a client, I was throwing in there and not telling them. Let's just imagine this for a moment. And then let's imagine that because the AI I use is not private, I use
Mhm.
public AI. So you can build your own server and build your own AI. And then
Yes.
I could throw my client's manuscript in there and it would never hit the internet because it's completely private and separate, but what I'm using isn't. And so there's nothing that says that AI isn't going to grab that manuscript and take it into the internet, use it for training, and then use that material without that author's permission, their copyrighted material
Mhm.
without their permission, and start spitting stuff out. And then all of a sudden, their work is being
Repurposed. Yes.
plagiarized in other places. I did that. That is not reversible. So me testing my own emails in AI, totally reversible. Consequences of the drop in open rates,
Mhm.
completely on me.
Right.
Me thinking that I can put someone else's manuscript in an AI that I've developed in a public domain, the consequences of that can land on that author, and that is not reversible. And
Yes.
so when we talk about values and integrity, this reversibility question is really important. Because if you can't reverse it, who is it affecting and how long it will affect them and how will it affect them and how is it going to change their life and how is it going to harm them? And I think that's something we really want to think about when we use AI. And so that's just like two examples of how I use it and how I don't use it based on the reversibility test. Because this is something I ask. Can I change? Can I go back? You put your client's work on the internet, you can't go back.
Yeah. No,
You
you can't.
can't go back from that, so don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Get off my soapbox now.
no, no, I'm with you. It brought to mind a conversation. I'm gonna give more of a sillier version of it. There was a friend online and she was saying that she's been allowing AI to work on her emails. And she said, "Oh my God, I went to go back to doing it manually just to make sure that I still had the muscle memory to be able to do it." And she was like, "It was so hard." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, think about it like this." I said, "I'll give you a poor man's version of it. How many phone numbers in your phone can you remember off the top of your head?" So there are the compromises of certain things that you can afford to let go of. Like if someone asks me certain people's numbers, there's certain ones I remember just because I'm odd. There's certain things that I still remember. Overall, there's certain things where I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna lose that, but I know what I stand to gain by letting that go. Well, I'm going to bring this home and we're going to start by talking about not catching up, but moving forward. For the people that were feeling paralyzed by AI and not sure if it was something that they wanted to be able to do, sure if it was a good fit, they were looking at the changing landscape. Hopefully, we've given you enough information for you to be able to see that there's definitely no reason for you to look behind and try to figure out, well, I got to learn all this other stuff. There's plenty for you to learn today that will prepare you for tomorrow, and there's plenty of things that you'll need to know tomorrow that will prepare you for the day after that and so on. So you don't need to catch up. You just need to focus on being able to move forward because the way it's crafted is it's something that's meant for you to be able to catch up faster and then plan out how you want to be able to move forward from there. So episode 1, you move from paralyzed to curious. You tried one thing and realized AI wasn't necessarily replacing you and that there were ways for you to be able to use it. Episode 2, you moved from curious to capable. You understood your workflow and where you can add things where it's irreplaceable value. AI can't do what you specifically do. Episode 3, you move from capable to confident. You learn to direct AI rather than just adapt to it. And it was something that allowed you to be able to say, okay, well, I know what I want to be able to use it for. I know how to be able to use it. And now it's something where I can say, well, I don't want you touching this. I want you to focus on this. And that's that orchestrator that allows you to make sure that everything is going the way that you want to be able to have it go. And then this episode, you move from confident to complete. We've covered all of these different things. One of the things that I try to convey to people is everyone has their own definition of success. My definition of success is not the same as someone else's. I'm not chasing money. I believe if you chase money, it runs. So I chase results and solutions. And in result, I'm able to have things go the way that I want them to be able to go. So understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's not always going to be the same thing throughout the year. It's going to evolve. Things are going to change in your life that may dictate it. If you have a partner that's laid off and all of a sudden your priorities change where you need to be the breadwinner, that could change your priorities. It could change the way that you use AI or just what you have going on. So asking these questions is going to be what's going to allow you to be able to do those check-ins and make sure that everything is aligning with where you are in the moment, and sometimes you have to live for that moment. But once that moment passes, you need to be able to shift back into that longer term view and make sure that you're getting out of it what you need to be able to get out of it. Okay, so with that, I'm going to bring it back over to the actual promise because hopefully we were able to address some of these things and make you feel better about the ability to be able to not just work with AI, but make sure that by the end of this episode, listeners will have a clear framework for determining their personal relationship with AI and the confidence to help others navigate similar decisions, turning understanding into sustainable practice. I apologize for interrupting the episode, but I wanted to share something with you. Every entrepreneur has natural competitive advantages that they're not fully utilizing. The problem is, we're often blind to our own strengths because they feel effortless to us. What comes natural to you may be incredibly difficult to your competitors. What you take for granted might be exactly what sets you apart in the marketplace. My Unfair Business Advantage quiz helps you identify the hidden competitive advantages that give you a clear strategy for leveraging them. It's a quick 10-minute assessment that could transform how you position yourself and your business. Check the link in the description and let's get you back to the episode. I am going to hope that we were able to cover that. I think that we did. I think we put a little extra something on it for some conversations so that it was universal, not just with AI, but in life in general, and making sure that people understand we're in a world right now where principles and value of who we are as a person is becoming a little bit of a gray area. So why not take this time to be able to leverage the thing that is going to allow you to be able to knock out some of the other things that's on your plate so that you can focus on what actually matters to you. And then once you identify those things, dig into it and just make sure that you're able to hold on to who you are because everything that we're going, every direction that things are going is if you don't know who you are, you will get lost. And that's the scary thing for me. I love that you know who you are. I know that you're a principled person, that you're nurturing, that you're empathetic, that you have a clear plan and that you are able to help other people find themselves. I want to bring it back around because I've talked about what we want to do for everybody else, but I want to talk about you. Is there anything that you want to be able to convey, anything that you want to leave people with? And let's cover that.
Absolutely. Well, if you're out there listening and you are interested in telling your story, writing a book, using AI, anything that I can support you, I'm happy to do it. We are returning our. Well, I have a community, so community building is important to me, and we're turning our knowledge base into a game. So if you have been thinking about writing a book and you're thinking, yeah, I'd like to have more fun doing that,
Hmm.
then we're launching in January. And so in January, join us, and I'll make sure that Sean has the links. Authoration2.com is where you can go to find things, but I'll make sure Sean has the link. But yeah, absolutely. Join us, play a game, write a book. And if you want to work one on one or ghostwriting, just let me know. We are, as you know, we have our high integrity. We care
Yes.
deeply about your success and not just in getting the book written, but in having more than 100 sales, and that takes time and effort, and we are there to support people all the way along. So please reach out, and I look forward to hearing from people who have questions about writing a book, questions about storytelling, questions about AI. I'm here for any of it. Thank you so much, Sean. I've really enjoyed our conversations. Thank you so much for putting this together and being a fantastic host along the way.
Well, I appreciate you. I am going to make sure that we don't skip over the part of LinkedIn is the best place to find you if they're trying to reach you.
Yes, it is.
There are other platforms that people can reach out to your team and be able to get the support and answers that they need. But if you are specifically looking for Melody, LinkedIn is going to be one of the best places to be able to get that fast response because there are going to be some people that get to watch this and say, I want to know more about you. I want to be able to work with you directly. You know how that goes when you find a person where you feel like, I feel like we're here and I want to be able to. So I just want to make sure that I add that part in. And then just the gamify. That's something that I'm looking forward to learning more about. This is going to be something that I break down into mini episodes because we covered some serious talking points and I want to make it easier for people to be able to find. So within each one, anything that's relevant to what you're doing, I'm going to make sure that I add those links into that as well. And
Ex
beyond that, I just want to say thank you so much. I know we went well over, and you were such a trooper. but I am going to make the main episode, and then we're going to turn all of the rest of it into miniseries episodes, and people are going to be eating off of this for quite a while. So that is
Thank you so
exciting to
much.
me because I know the difference that you make in my life just by us having this conversation. So I can only imagine how many different people that you're going to be able to affect by them finding it when it matters the most to them and they can actually do something with it. So I'm going to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say like, share, and subscribe. This is the Strategic Thinkers, and this is a series with Melody Owen talking about AI and how you don't catch up, you just move forward. And I believe you are now in a position where you can move forward with more confidence, more clarity, and you can actually get the results that you want to be able to get. And whatever that is, whatever your definition of success, I want to thank you, Melody, for helping them and myself be able to accomplish the things that we set out to do. So thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to the Strategic Thinkers podcast. Remember, when you can make the inconvenient convenient, people are willing to pay you for the experience. The better the experience, the more they'll not only pay you, but help others pay you. Serving as brand champions. My name is Sean Atkinson, and I'm wishing you well on your journey to your definition of success. If you find this podcast interesting, helpful, worth the listen, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a positive review so people know to check it out, and I'll see you next time.